We go live. I'm Bobby Roundtree, born medium, and I am here with Lynn Thompson. Lynn Thompson is an accomplished writer, editor, and podcast host, Zoom host. Can you call it Zoom host?
It's just all part of the podcast thing. Yeah.
Zoomer.
Yeah, Zoomer. Yeah, I'm a Zoomer. I'm a
You're a
Zoomer too.
Zoomer. A proud Zoomer.
It's an age thing.
Yes. I don't know. We have one person here right now. We'll have more people coming. But if you would like to, Lynn, explain, or would you like me to explain?
Well, why don't we combine it a bit? I could
Okay.
start off by saying thank you so much, Bobby, for welcoming me to be your guest. This is a very rare event. I am
Yes.
rarely a guest. Oh, yes.
Yeah, you're always the host. I have been your guest several times. You have
Yes.
not been mine. How rude of me.
It's about time.
Yes, you're supposed to reciprocate when somebody has you in. You're supposed to have them as a guest. So here you are, a guest. Yes. Now, oh gosh, there's so many ways in which that I have been your guest. And
It's
we could
true.
actually even go step by step by step with all the ways for you, or we could just put it in a blanket. I've been on your podcast.
You've been on my podcast numerous times
Mhm.
as a guest, just you and me, uh, where we even got, I think the first time we got interrupted technically, and then we had to pick it up again. You may recall that. That
I
was
think
a
I
few
do,
years ago now. Yes.
yeah.
And then we started this summer room thing where we invited people to come in and do, mini readings and draws for mini readings. And then of course we couldn't leave anybody out, so we had to include everybody somehow, and some got longer readings and some got shorter. And I had to keep reining you in,
Oh,
and then
sorry.
we thought we would try not doing readings, and then, and then you couldn't help yourself. And so we just kept going.
Yeah, I'm terrible for that. I can't help myself. Yeah, once those gates open, I get drawn through them. It's ridiculous. Yes, you know what? I actually had blocked out the summer rooms out of my head. I can't even believe that because that was before I started doing these.
Right.
And these, yeah, if we see with the summer rooms with these, when folks put in their comments, they're right there. I can't see them. I just answer the question. It was
Mm,
so nice with the Zoom summer rooms because I say it to people all the time. Hello, Green. That I don't get any feedback. So
right.
I'll hear something, say something, and go, I don't know. I see a football. I don't know why I see a football. So I don't get any confirmation. So I just put out like partial information for folks. So the Zoom summer readings, summer rooms that we used to do were great for that because I could see the people and interact.
Yeah,
And
that's very cool that, yeah, that kind of was the that was the forerunner. I'm not seeing anybody, but I can see perhaps when there's comments coming up, maybe I'll see that.
yeah.
But yeah, that's very cool that what you're doing now was a forerunner. I'm pretty sure I realized that. I've just sort of fallen out of touch with what you've been doing until, you told me recently, and then you invited me to be your guest. So this is awesome.
Yes, thank you. It is awesome. And we love doing this because we love the connection with all the Orachellians. We're coming in now. Hello, Carol. Hello, Jerry. Uh, it's visitors. LOL, busy, busy. Jerry has a very busy mind right now. You can't see her comments. So yes, Jerry has a very busy mind. Okie dokie. Now, your podcasts, why do you do them?
It's a really good question because it's all, there's no money involved.
Mhm.
My model was was how I started with radio on CHLY in Nanaimo on Vancouver Island, with Living on Purpose, coming up exactly this week, 19 years ago.
Wow. Wow. Does THLY even exist? Still it does, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It was a very young station at the time.
Yeah.
It's a much older station now. But yeah, I'd always wanted to be on radio, and then I was delivering mail on my postal route, and I stumbled across the radio station at one point on the dial, and I thought I was on a different station, and I heard, really interesting music, and then the next day I heard a conversation about sign language with pre-literate babies. And I'm going, what's this all about? This is so cool. And then this is CHLY, and we're located in the basement of the Queen's Hotel. And if you want to become a member, you can come on down and you can fill out a program proposal if you want to be on air. And I was just driving off the road. Like I
You're so
was
excited.
in. Yeah.
That is so bizarre. I did not realize that because CHLY to me, I used to call it the Malaspina radio station. Because I went to Malaspina at the time and used to listen to CHLY. I had friends who did radio shows on CHLY. Isn't that bizarre?
What, Bobby? We never talked about this. So my show was called Living on Purpose.
Yeah, and I was living on purpose at that time. Yeah.
And it was on Tuesdays from 2 to 4. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
we've never ever talked about that before, have we?
No, that's crazy. No, I had no idea. Yeah, it was 2004, August 3rd, for pretty much 4 years. I did it for 3 years. I took a year off. I came back for a year because I missed it. And then I finally completely left. It was a total volunteer situation. We weren't paid to learn, and we didn't pay to be on air, so I learned so much, and a lot of it was the audio editing I learned too, as well as, preparing, interviewing, following up, getting all kinds of different guests. So in the middle of all that time was when podcasting started. And that's when I went on Radio for All briefly. And then in 2007, I started with 2 different channels, one in Canada, Rabble Podcast Network.
Okay.
With the Rabble Network, Rabble it's called. And then in women's radio in the States. And I was with Rabble for 10 years and various schedules. Like at first, twice. I was crazy at first. I wanted to be on every day of the week for free everywhere. And then women's radio, I just wrapped that up a few years ago. So it was over 10 years.
Yeah, because I think we did a women's radio podcast together.
I'm sure we did. Yeah.
I think the one I've posted on my Facebook page is women's radio.
Oh, well, then we need to look at that because it does not exist anymore.
Okay.
So, make a note of that. But I'm on Podbean, and that is the only place I am. I'm nowhere else on the internet. I am on Podbean, and I still call it Living on Purpose, but on there, I slightly changed the name to the On Purpose Podcast.
Okie dokie. Yes. All right. And I always have it living life on purpose or living the on purpose life. I always change it to that in my head because once I see something, I make it what I think it, and then it stays that way. So I always think of it living the on purpose life.
Wow. I've never heard that before. Okay.
And that's always the way I hear it and see it. And
well, yeah. And you've shared with your promo, you've shared the On Purpose podcast.podbean.com. Okay.
Yes, because you have had some amazingly interesting people on your podcast, not just me. You've had several incredibly interesting people on various topics that people could and would be very interested in my opinion.
Well, thank you. Anything stand out, or do you want me to mention a couple of things?
Oh, you could go right ahead and mention a couple. What stands out to you?
Well, there are some group discussions that I would like to mention, and also some one-on-one conversations. And it's gradually becoming a lot of group discussions because I'm finding it really interesting to have a guest or maybe a number of guests on, and then invite people to come and it's like it's a discussion. It's not necessarily that we've got experts on for like everybody. I just consider everybody an expert in some way, and so it's interesting. So I've had a series, as you know, and you've been a wonderful participant, called The Art of Departure, and all about, before, during, and after death and arrangement. And I mean, you're a natural to have in there. I just love having my psychic medium friend Bobby on, because there's so many other people on, people who are involved with palliative care, hospice care in prisons. Practical tips and practical information about drawing up.
It varies.
Yeah. There's been like 3 of them so far, and each one there's some common people returning, and with lots of interesting ideas and input. and experiences to share. And then there's always new people who are coming in, and maybe they've listened to the earlier ones, but each one is very different. It's very interesting.
Yes, and actually, we should maybe clarify too. The art of departure is actually about death.
Yes.
Yeah, and I find it's such a broad, amazing topic. What I find too on those Zoom podcasts is, I don't want to say the surprise so many people have when it comes to the other side and death and things like that. That I find that when we're doing that, I see a lot of the practical knowledge going on, and I want to go, hey, wait about wait about what do you get there? That's what always goes on my brain.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, there's so much about. I thought there would be more practical things like to help people prepare. But,
Mhm.
yeah, your insights that you share, and also like a lot of people want to talk about like near-death experiences
Yeah,
and insights and curiosity they have. And so it's been very dreamy in some ways, just very cool where it goes and how people look at it, and the fact that people are they're just soaking up the atmosphere that like 15 to 20 of us are into coming and hanging out and talking about this
yeah,
topic.
we're talking about death for goodness sakes, and
Yeah.
nobody's going, oh, don't talk about that, that's bad. Yeah, I think it's wonderful because it's actually, to my mind, it relaxes people more into the idea and into the losses that they have suffered as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful. Yeah. The
Yeah.
only thing, yeah, the thing when I listen to everyone is everyone's talking about their wills and all the practical things they've done. I think totally not done any of that.
Well, but that is part of the reason I wanted to start having these calls, and I'm delighted that it's become a thing. And we'll definitely have a Art of Departure 4.
Yes.
Um,
And
yeah,
people could actually watch the Art of Departures now, could they not? Like they can go onto
yeah,
your
for sure. And it's
podcast
not watching though; it's just listening, right?
listening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's podcasts, and they're pretty long. Like they're the better part of 2 hours. And I've edited them down to make them easier to listen to, like just tighten them up
Mhm.
with my audio editing. Yeah, so yeah, they're on there. They're on there. They're on the first page. But you can just load up more of the episodes and you can find them. And actually, even if you get onto one, there's even a sampler that's 20 minutes long. And all of them have in the show notes, when you click on the title and the show notes, it has the links to all of them in the show notes. So you
Oh,
can
so you've
find,
made it very, very easy. Yeah, that doesn't
yeah,
surprise me that you've made it very easy. I find you
yeah.
to be incredibly organized, which is very good for the other thing that you do.
Oh, what's
The editing of the books thing.
the editing of the books? Yes.
The editing of the books. Lynn is actually my book editor
Oh,
for
yes.
my novel that I am going through. And thank God I have Lynn to walk me through with two hands, like I'm just learning, because I am just learning. And the patience you have. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Well, you're probably used to crazy people writing books, and you have to deal with those crazy people.
It's a really interesting it's an interesting dynamic, and it's becoming more and more of a collaboration. Because I was getting really lonely working by myself on people's books, and I
Mhm.
felt like it was lonely for them. So now we get together, and that's how we do it. I used to feel like I was always having to do homework at my desk before I would meet with the author next. And now
Yeah.
it's like you do a lot of the work, of where you want to get it to. And then we get onto a Zoom screen share and get
Mhm.
Grammarly as our assistant, not as our writer, but as our assistant.
Yes.
And yes. And so we're looking closely at what you're writing and
Mhm.
how it can be even better than it is, right?
Yeah, the enhancement of it.
And we talk together about it. It's not all up to me. And and I want to run things by you in real time rather than make all these suggestions and then send it all over to you, and you don't know for sure what I meant, and I don't know what you're going to think. And that got really cumbersome.
Yeah,
So this is better.
yeah. I find it's great with the discussion of the ideas too. Like, because sometimes as a writer, you think that you're getting this point across, and as the reader, you're looking, going, "What the hell is the reader trying to say here?" And you, as the editor, can help make it so that communication goes all the way through. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, and that, I can say, so what do you mean here? What's actually going on? Tell me more of what's going on. I like, because often the writer has the scene in their head,
Hmm.
but it's so they figure that it's coming through, but we need more. We need more senses. We need more descriptions. We need more, what does it feel like? What does it smell like? What does it look like? What does it taste like? What does it
Yeah.
smell like? Like, and I've been learning so much about storytelling myself over this last 6 months, especially. And I do a lot of writing.
Hmm.
Involved in writing 4 weeks at a time with Anne Randolph, this Your Story Matters, Unmute Yourself.
Yeah.
And really, really amazing community of writers and guest artists, So I'm learning as a writer, which helps me so much with you as a writer. I
Good.
love it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Every time I read someone, I get a little more enlightened after what they have been receiving from on high. So that makes perfect sense to me. And I find with your writing, man, like the story you tell when you're a little infant, I felt like I was in the infant's head. Like
Wow.
I could see it. Because it's like when you get a story told by someone who thinks you know everyone involved in the story. Then you have to dig through your brain, try to figure out what the relationship of people are because they're just giving you names and actions and things. So that's what it's like, isn't it? Like when you get a writer who doesn't seem to realize that not everybody knows everything that's going on in their head. And
Well, exactly. Like I had a like just so that you and your visitors guests here know, um like if anybody would like to have a free half hour with me to talk about their
oh,
project or even their idea, like I love doing that, and then we can just see what's going on and see if there's compatibility and what options there might be going forward. Like for example, um, a colleague of mine in Ottawa, he met somebody at a networking event, and this woman's husband had written a second book and wanted some feedback. And that's how I met this guy. Just da 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 da.
yeah,
And
makes sense.
so we had a call with him and his wife, and I heard about the first book and heard about the book he was doing. And then he was going to do some work on it and put it through Grammarly and then be in touch with me. And he followed up a few weeks later, like he said he would. And I
Mhm.
was just about to follow up with him, but then he wrote first. And then we set up the first of a paid session. And he sent me the first chapter to look at before we met. So it was amazing because he thought that it was in pretty good shape and he put it through Grammarly. So he felt confident that Grammarly had given it
I
the
know
all
that
clear.
feeling. I know that feeling well.
Yeah. Oh dear, famous last thoughts. Anyway, it was like, and I love that, right? I'm just so in for a challenge. Like, if somebody thinks that something is in good shape, bring it on. I want to see it because I want to see how I can help you make it even better, right?
Yes.
So yeah, so I made a bunch. I made, like, you can do track changes, right? Like where you show all your changes, and I've learned over the years how to do that better. I didn't know how to do that at first, but I learned years ago now. And so I did a bunch of that so that I could then, when we met, I could go through it with them to explain why I was suggesting these things. But I also made a list of just overall notes. And so I said, I don't want to blow you out of the water here with all these track changes. Let's just look at my list first. So we looked at that first, and that helped for him to answer a bunch of questions that I wondered about the context and where it was going, and just have more of
Okay.
a sense, right? Because you're coming into a whole new world. You want to know a bit more, and you want the story to keep moving along. Like you can see where it's like, okay, is this detail moving it forward? Like, is there a reason for this detail?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, it was a very productive time. I've sent him away with a lot to do, and I'm not
You
sure what
have, I know that feeling.
anyway, so those are just some thoughts there. I just realized I didn't fully answer your question about the podcast because we got into the art of departure and the discussions. There's also some one-on-one conversations that I've had over the years and more recently, some with authors that I've collaborated with on their books and they've been published. And then there's also people like Dan Millman. Do you know Dan Millman? Way of the Peaceful Warrior.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, he's an author. He's a former gymnast. He's a speaker. He's written 20, I think 20 books, like a lot of books.
Wow.
And I first found out about him in 2000. Well, no, I'd already knew about him with Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And then I Google searched my name and the name of Living on Purpose, like I would do that in those early years, just to see where I would show up in the search, right?
Yeah, I do that.
It's nice to do every now and then. I remember to do it. Anyway, I was ahead of him in Google because he had written a book called Living on Purpose, and my show was called Living on Purpose, and I was ahead of him. And so I sent him an email and I welcomed him to be my guest, and he accepted.
Wow, good for you. That was smart.
Yes, it was one of my first really famous people. Yeah, it was very exciting. Went very well. So that's on my podcast. I have that on there. And he was on more recently, I guess last year sometime he was on again. So.
Oh, okie dokie. So people can go on and see that. Now, Carrie actually has either a comment or a question. I'll pop it up so you can see it, because I don't know if you can see people's comments.
Oh, here we go. Now I can. This is cool, as I've
I
always
popped it
been
up.
called to write a book, never know where to begin. This just popped up and it's synchronicity. My son, 17, is a talented creative writer. Well, there's a lot in that little comment.
There
Thank you.
is, yes. Thank you, Carrie. So if Carrie was to write a book or to begin to write a book, where should she begin?
Well, I'm curious about her son and what he's doing too. You know, just the family synchronicity going on here. Oh, well, I mean, there's so many places you can, I mean, Carrie, probably been writing journals. You've probably been sketching out notes. You probably have some kind of idea. You know, one thing like where you say something like that, right? You know, I've always been called to a book, never know where to begin. You know what the word is after begin?
Is it
Yet.
now?
No, it's yet. I don't know.
Yet. Yet.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. Yeah.
Because then that opens it up, right? Then it's like,
oh. And it makes it something you know you're going towards, and that might come to you because you said yet.
Exactly.
That's very good. They're all in my head, she says. I get that. Carrie, a lot of the earrings and jewelry that I wear, Carrie has created.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So she's a very creative woman. And okay, so Carrie is probably a little bit cuckoo like me on that. And I know the way I wrote my book, honestly, I'm writing the second one and I'm doing it the same. I'm trying not to. I'm trying to put a what is that? Outline. I'm trying to do that. All I can actually really do, but it seems to write itself. Now, am I just a crazy ADHD psychic lady, or is it lots of writers do that?
Oh, yeah. No, and it's so important to do that, Bobby. You know, it's so important. I mean, this is something I heard years ago as a writer, to leave the editor at the door.
Okay.
Okay. So imagine you have two hands.
Yeah.
A lot of us have two hands. Okay. So imagine one is the writer. Well, actually, it would be your dominant hand is the writer. No, wait. Sorry, I'm sorry. I hadn't really, I hadn't thought about this exactly as an analogy until now, but I would say your non-dominant hand is your writer because it's flowing, right?
Yeah.
So your dominant hand would be the editor. So you leave your dominant hand out of it and you go with your non-dominant hand and just let her rip. Like get the material down. And that's what I often say to people is that I will help you polish your writing so you can focus on the content. I will help you polish it. But you're the writer, like you get your content down. So, you know, I would take the leash off yourself there, Bobby, and just let her rip.
Okay, just that, yeah, that is what happens. I just let her rip. And even if I think I have a plan, because, well, for myself, because mine are a little bit different, I don't think I write mine alone. In fact, probably nobody writes their books alone. They just think they write their books alone, but there's always the divine inspiration that is within there. So yeah. And and I'm writing different characters in different books too. different little journals. I have a whole bunch of different journals, and I'm writing all the different
That's so
characters in that.
exciting. I love that. That's so
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
Oh, I'm okay. I hope you're excited because you're going to have to read the second one too.
We're going to be busy for a while, Bobby.
You're going to be busy for a while because I honestly believe there's going to be 7 of them. So, ha ha on you. Now, speaking of writing, what about your writing, young lady? Because you are an excellent writer. You really
Thank
are.
you.
You're one of those writers where I can read it and I feel as though I am in there completely. And I don't feel as though I'm being told it. I feel as though I'm living it. And that is all my senses are being pulled in. That's how you
Wow.
write.
Wow.
So,
Well, thank you.
when is your first book?
Well, I've been reading a lot of books lately. I'm reading one right now, and I'm being inspired by the writing that I'm reading. It's really good writing, and I can feel my book this week.
Like it's boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, there's something cooking,
As
and
soon
I
as
think
you said, I saw your intestines moving, so that's why.
well, I'm excited about it in a different way. I think, you see, partly what's been going on for 2 years is I've been intensely involved with a number of projects. Some of them are independent, no publisher in sight, no timeline in sight. Like some of them are unfolding, like yours. But there's also been I've helped a ton of books get published, and
Yeah,
there's been such a bit of a puppy mill, like it's been a hamster wheel.
rolling
It's been
over, rolling over.
a little bit of a formula. I mean, every book
Mm,
different, but a process that's become very familiar in the whole start to finish of the
that's
publishing.
interesting.
It is very interesting. I've learned so much. I mean, I'm overwhelmed with how much I've learned. And part of what I've learned is I want my book to be a more personal process of getting published. I don't want to do it in this big announcement and launch and publicity and and not that I want it to be totally understated either, but I want it to feel more personal. I just want it to feel
Okay.
more like my baby getting born. Like, it's sort of like that, I think, for somebody in the hospital, who's just pumping out the babies, just catching one baby after another, and you lose track of just the personal one-offness of each of those experiences.
Oh, that is
And
interesting.
yeah. So I've got a ton of material. I mean, I've got a ton of journals, and that's partly what I realized I haven't put in my will anywhere, or I haven't let my people know what to do with my journals. And that's really important if I don't get through them by the time, I finally
Oh,
have to.
absolutely. Because is there
Yeah,
more than 20?
there's more than 20. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's
Oh yeah,
stacked high.
there's
That's
stacks. There's
funny.
stacks.
You roll us over into our next subject.
Oh,
You
okay.
actually 2 of them, to be honest, and whichever one you want to attach to. So, your plan or your family.
Hmm.
Do you want to do plan first?
Yeah,
Philip?
let's go for plan. I don't know. You're taking me down a thicket here.
I
Otherwise, I
am
don't.
taking you down a thicket. It's because the voices in my head are taking us both down there. Bet you never been interviewed by someone who's getting stuff from in their head.
No,
No,
no. I'm used to interviewing you. I'm used to being,
that's true.
in a different dynamic. So this
Yeah,
is
you're used to being the one in charge of keeping the firefly from banging up against the jar too much.
fascinating.
Now the firefly is in charge. Oh no.
Oh no.
Anywho, so Lynn has one of the best stories I've ever heard in my whole life. Do you want to tell it the dollar store story? The bubbles? I
Such a
love
great story. I love this story.
that. It's a
Okay.
great story.
All right. So the deal is that in the winter, the dollar store highlight for me is all the twinkle lights, right? The white lights or the colored lights. So I load up on them in the winter because they don't sell them in the summer. In the summer, they sell bubble wands and they don't sell them in the winter. So you got to load up in the summer. So I was so excited a couple months ago going into the dollar store and getting a big armful of the bubble wands. And so then, I hadn't taken a cart. So I was like lugging them and, seeing what else I wanted to pull in, and went down this aisle, and there was a woman there, and we started talking about bubble wands, and we started talking about how to make the formula to fill them up once you've used all the bubbles, you know. We were talking about different formulas, and then we were just gradually getting down the aisle, and I finally said, you know what, I am just so relieved to have a fresh supply for my funeral. And she immediately went, whoa, oh, are you dying? And I said, well, yes, aren't you? Like it was the most spontaneous, hilarious conversation that I couldn't have created or even anticipated. Oh, I loved
I
it.
just such
And
a
the
great
time,
line. Aren't you?
yeah, aren't you? And then and she said, well, yeah. And I said, I just, I just figure it's a good idea to be ready. And she went, well, that's a different way to look at it, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I it was perfect timing to use that as my art of departure in my invitation to people. I used
Yeah.
that. I put that story in, and it was just beautiful timing. And you said apparently that my dad was involved in that?
Yeah. Well, your dad's involved in almost everything you do. That's actually what I just heard. But the levity, your ability to actually look at, because it's like people buy insurance just in case their houses burn down. You know you're gonna die. You just know it. So you might as well be prepared for it. You know, it's easy for me to say, well, I'm not prepared, but you're prepared. Like, you have a whole plan, and that's what I gotta write out. This is what well, my kids know. Give my body to medical research, and then what's ever left over, I don't know what you want to do with it. That's actually so I have to tell them what to do with it, or else they're gonna go, oh my God, is she gonna visit me in my dreams? Is she gonna bonk me in the head with stuff every time I walk past? Because I'll do that.
Well, okay, so just briefly about that, okay? So what
Mhm.
I'm learning is that okay, medical research is different than organ donation. If it's organ donation, you've got to be on it, right? Those
Yeah,
organs have to stay alive. So there's no time to say, "Oh no, she's died. I'm in grief and don't touch her body." I mean, things happen fast.
they do. Yes.
So that's a different thing than organ research, like where
Mhm.
it would just, it would be dead, it would go off to a medical school, you'd have that arrangement in place and things would happen, but with a little more levity or reverence, I mean,
Mhm.
with how things would proceed. But apparently also, I mean, you'd have to look into it, but apparently also you can get all those body parts back, used, and cremated later, apparently, I
So
think.
everything is intact. Yes. See, is my grandmother, she donated to be a cadaver. My father did the same. So to me, it's family tradition.
Family thing, yeah.
Yeah. And to me, too, the body belongs to here. And the people here might benefit if I leave them the body to be researched in some sort of way. That's the
Sure.
way I think of it. I do have to look at the actual logistics of it. And I actually have to back myself up a little bit to tell everyone Lynn has a plan, like an actual plan. And you have people that work on the plan, like you have appointed people that it
Well,
needs to be nipped in the bud, is actually what I just heard. Like, how about being so cavalier about death that calling it nipped in the bud?
she was a blossom, and
She
then
was
she was nipped.
supposed to.
Well, okay, well, so it's not totally unusual to have a plan. It's just that I'm finding that I'm learning more and more people don't have a plan, and that's why I'm becoming more and more unusual. And I like being unusual, so that's okay. The thing is that I had various sort of plans for quite a while, but it was only 3 years. It was 3 years ago that I became more focused on it, and oh, it was partly because of my parents, well, my dad who had died the year before, and his ashes were all in in numerous amounts, scattered to the family, and no one had taken them to where he wanted them to go, where mums were yet. And I got to thinking about our sister had also died, uh, and I got to thinking about where I wanted my ashes. Like I thought that was part of what I wanted to have a little more distinct distinguish.
Yeah. How do I make sure this happens for me? That's the way I'm hearing it in my
Like,
head. Yeah.
yeah, and like I want to be in control, like as long as I can. And um, so anyway, I looked in. Oh yeah, this is what happened. I interviewed a funeral director, the one
Ah,
who had helped my parents and my sister's departure and my dad's friend. So I wanted to talk to him in June or so of 2020 as to what was going on, or anything they were noticing, and just some insights from his career.
mhm.
So I learned a lot because he really likes to talk. And so I learned a lot. It was almost like I was having an interview to find out what I wanted to do. And as it turned out, I learned a big piece, which was that some cemeteries will allow up to 4 interred, sounds weird, interred,
Yes.
yeah, ashes
Uh-huh.
in an existing family plot. I
Ah,
had never considered it. Never in a million years would I have even known that. So there is a cemetery near where my grandparents were, where we used to visit as children, where my grandparents, and we had a little brother who just died he just lived for a few days and then he died. So he actually initiated that cemetery plot. And he died a decade before my grandfather, who died 11 years before my grandmother. So I visit that cemetery a lot. It's a beautiful cemetery, and it's
mhm.
within an hour of where I live now. So anyway, I went and I talked to the people there, and I found out, well, I also talked to my family, and nobody was that interested in doing any kind of additional thing for our parents or sister, because if that had been important to any of them, they would have thought of it. And so it was all up to me. And the custodian at the cemetery, suggested a memorial bench for myself. And
Yes.
I love that idea. And
Me too.
so he even let me set it up on an angle beside a mature silver maple tree. And it's facing the family headstone across the little gravel trail.
So you're
And
always watching over them.
yeah, I'm there. Like, I'm part of the team. I go and
Mhm.
I haunt my future memorial. It's been there for 3 years now. I have a bronze birth plaque, a bronze inspiring words plaque, and there's a space for the death plaque. And the new custodian at the cemetery, who I talked with recently, I mean, I like to keep in touch. Um, he said, like I said, it's very important that my executor is able to proofread the wording. Like, I'll leave the wording, but then the date is still going to need to be added, because I don't know that. So he said that I could proofread the rest of it. I could do that before I die. So as long as I'm good with the words, and I don't want to change the words, but I think I'm getting pretty close. But you know what? Have you ever been to a cemetery? Cut me off anytime here, Bobby, on
Okay.
topic, but have you ever been to a cemetery and seen anyone include the day of the week that they were born or died?
I don't know that I have. I actually don't know that I ever have. Has anyone seen the day of the week? Hello, Anna, by the way, being put on the a headstone. I want to know if anyone has seen that. So are you are you gonna have the day of the week?
I do. I do for my
Okay,
birth.
good.
Yep,
And
Tuesday.
fine. Wow, that'll be very interesting. I also just you talking about this is inspiring me. It's making me now I know why people make those videos.
What videos?
The funeral videos where they, "Hi, I'm dead." Oh my god, that's gonna be a story. "Hello, everyone, I'm dead. I'm home now."
Hello, I'm home.
Now, Carrie says, "I have," and I don't know which thing she's I having to. Do you have a plan, Carrie? Let us know, because I wanna know if other people have plans, like Lynn has a plan. I think I've got now that you talk about what people write about, yeah. But okay, does it make you feel sometimes are you bragging about your accomplishments at all, or are you being humble and full of humility?
Well, there's a couple of things to mention, since my dad's, in the room. When After our aunt died, and I'd been her power of attorney out west, and then I drove across the country province by province and thought, I might as well go to Ontario, I'm that close. So I showed up at his place and I said, Dad, Aunt Jean was so organized. Will you please just, organize everything for you and Mom so that we're not wondering what your wishes are? And he said that he had been doing some of it, but he'd sort of gotten stalled because he had a feeling that if he got all organized, he would die.
Oh, yes. Okay, I get that. Yeah, I think a lot of people have that feeling.
He lived another 8 years. But the thing is that I'm still holding off. Every day it's on my list. Lynn, update those sheets. It's like, what is so tough? But I think that's part of it. I think part of
Yeah.
it is I'm assuming I'm still alive for a while.
Mhm.
Also, interestingly, just recently, since it's been 3 years, I called a meeting with my two powers of attorney, and one of them is the executor, and one of my brothers who's been power of attorney and executor as well, just for support for his daughter who's involved. And oh man, it was sort of awkward because it's like I know that they're inspired. None of them is as far along as I am in organizing.
Mhm.
And in fact, my brother was defensive about me asking him. My niece was inspired, and so is my executor. Like they're both inspired by what I'm doing, and think it's a good thing, even if they're not
They're
sure.
young.
Yeah, they're younger
They're
for
young.
sure.
When you're young, you don't think you're ever gonna die.
No, and I didn't think when I didn't have a lot to contend with, so I thought, what does it matter? But now I've met the funeral whisperer, and she said there's 161 things that have to happen within 72 hours when you die. And if you can get a lot of those things done ahead of time, you're going to be helping people out a lot.
Yes. Yeah, because I always think of it as too, that funerals, things like that are for the survivors. I almost wanted to let them remember me the way they want to remember me. But when you're in grief, you can't make decisions properly.
There's practical things to be done, and if you have to wonder what the person wanted, then that's putting more pressure on you.
It
And
is, yeah.
so what I wanted to say though, also there about that, having that meeting, I was not feeling at my optimum. I was not feeling like me. I was having a rough week. I was having a rough couple of weeks. Number of different pressures. I didn't realize how much they were impacting me. So I ended up, after the meeting, I ended up updating the main summary sheet to send to them. But I realized that some of it was stuff that I hadn't actually talked to them about. So I sort of feel like now I need to send a follow-up to answer questions you might have. But I think how I ended up feeling was all I had to look forward to was watching my carefully arranged details play out. Like
Yeah.
what else is there to life? Like I felt very depressed actually. And but since then I made a decision a week ago that has completely relieved me. And I feel so much more like myself and so much more excited and amazed by life again, and just really, really grateful and excited. So I am so happy. It's been a strange kind of month, but I feel really relieved and happy. And more, yeah, just sort of a little more prepared to follow up with those three people to just give them more clarity as to some of what I put in the document after we talked that I hadn't really mentioned that I think they would probably wonder about. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense to me because when you were talking about it, they sure showed it like as though you're going to move one day, so you pack everything up, and then you get everything packed up, and now you're stagnant. And
Good
that's the
one.
way that they showed it. So instead of just know you're going to move one day, so just know that everything needs to be mobile, that everything is constant, because you are a mover and a shaker. When I met you, it was so funny because you were in Kauai when we set up your first reading. I thought you were coming from Kauai. I didn't know you were coming to our house. And I was not dressed properly. And I have learned my lesson now. Ever since that moment, I don't, if it's a phone reading, I don't care. I'm fully dressed.
Well, you were dressed. It's just
I
that
was,
you
I
had
had a
really
spill down my front.
spill on your shirt.
I
Yeah.
had my shirt. I will never forget it because I was so mortified. I saw you come, oh no, I have a spill on my shirt. This is the first time you ever met me. How unprofessional. But yeah, so yeah,
But
you're
you
a
were very
lady.
you were very good though, so I overlooked it.
Overlook the mess that was me. Yes.
Yeah.
Jerry has a comment for us too. My husband died and was cremated. I keep him in a small chest on the dresser by our bed. When I go, our ashes will be combined and most likely spread on our pond.
You know what? I've heard of a lot of people doing that in couples. I am not married, so it's not something that I've considered. But I recently I know about people doing that, waiting for the second person, and I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that's great. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes, thank you. Oh, and added this. Kid said it would be a Viking send off. So are they going to actually shoot a flaming arrow at you? Because I want a video of that. I want to see that happening. Yeah, and I want it to be like Game of Thrones where he keeps shooting it and it never reaches. Have you seen that episode of Game of Thrones? Yeah, I can't remember which character it was, but it's like, oh, it's so sad. Poor Vale. Anyway, yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Jerry. Yeah, I guess I'm going to have ashes. We just actually distributed or let go of the ashes of my aunt.
Oh, yes.
And it was, I don't know, not anticlimactic. It was just, I don't know. It didn't put a cap on it for me.
It's so much to take in, the whole ash thing, you know. I remember as a kid, I never wanted to be in a box rotting in the ground. That freaked me out way
Yeah,
more. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It just makes me think of being buried alive. And I know I'd be dead.
But you'd be alive. You'd be conscious. You'd be like, I'm in this box. No.
Yes. Yes. Why didn't they put the bell around my toe? That's where we get the term dead ringer.
Dead ringer, yeah.
Because they put bells on people's toes because people go into these comatose states and people would think they were dead and bury them. And then if they weren't dead, they'd wiggle their toes and the bell would ring on the surface side, and then people have to come and
Hey, I want to mention something about okay, so the idea then is I've got the bench. The bench is not dependent on my ashes being in the cemetery at all. Okay.
Yeah.
However, you can't prepay for some things. I can't prepay for my death plaque, the death bronze plaque to be attached to the bench. I can't prepay for that. And I can't prepay for the ashes going into the plot. And that price is going to go up and up and up and up and up and up and up. And right now, if it was going into the plot and it was going to be in the winter and it was going to be before Tuesday, or sorry, if it was going to be on a Saturday before 2:00 arrival, all of that adds up and it's almost $2,000. Just, it's a lot. So I told my people that I'm sort of considering a plan B that won't cost, but I don't want my ashes split up. So, it requires a little bit of organization. And the other thing is just to know is that you can pour, like I was thinking of having the ashes poured in if that's the way it goes. But then you don't have the option to dig them up. If there's in an urn or container, then you don't have the option if you want to take them out and put them somewhere else later,
Because they're all loose.
Because they're all loose, yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, just to let you know, different choices.
That is funny, actually, because just before you told me if you pour them in, I swear your father showed them actually just being spread all over the grass.
Well, you see what
way around it. That's what he says.
I know. Like I thought, hey, what the heck? Like I could ask the guy, hey, is it possible for me to just plant a little shrub beside my bench? And then who would know that the ashes were poured in with the dirt with the shrub, right?
You could put them in with the root ball.
Yeah, just do it themselves.
Thing, actually, too. People actually having themselves buried with trees. Is that not a thing? And then the tree grows out of them?
For sure. For sure.
So, my ashes got to be buried with a rowan tree.
Yeah, so every time, but then I don't want to be sneaky. I don't want people to feel like they have to be sneaky.
But that'd be funny. It'd be a caper.
It'd be a caper.
It'd be a caper. You could put me in charge of that if I'm still here.
Oh, make a special trip to Ontario.
I just volunteered for a caper.
Anyway, I have to think about all that. But I have to say that every time I have thought about this big plan I have to be poured into this family plot, something feels like it's not going to happen. And part of it is the cost. If I do live for many years, that's going to be a big cost. And is that what I'm going to want people to spend their money on?
Well, and
You know,
who knows? Actually, you're not an old woman, you're a young woman. So
thank
you
you.
have
I'm
a long
a
life
lady,
left to live. There
apparently.
actually might be a reason for that, because maybe your situation will change and you want to be buried in a different kind of way, or with a different kind of, something.
Yeah, I'm
You-
open.
Yeah. You might have like a Jerry situation where you're like, pour me in with Ned.
Yeah, pour me in with Ned. Yeah, we come up with a creative new idea. I feel it's just a little understated. For me, I think it's a little understated. It's a bit safe. It's a safe option.
Mhm.
There's something not on about it. So I don't know what the option, I don't know what the alternative is, and I can come up with a couple just to have something. But I'm thinking that's probably not, and I'm glad to know it that the bench can be there regardless. So that's great.
Yes, I like the idea of having your ashes put within paint and have a painting made. And when they make them into gems, they can do that apparently too. They can compact it enough to make it a gem or something like that. I like those sorts of things, but I got to make a plan. Do you guys have plans?
Yeah, you
I
guys
don't
have
know.
plans? We want to know. We've
Yeah,
been,
I want to know if other people have plans, because it's just, I honestly think you're totally correct too. People don't plan because they don't want to think that they're going to die.
no,
Like,
but
it's a
it's what?
like it's a bad thing.
Well,
Nobody who's dead tells me, "Oh, I wish I was still there." None of them. Even those that actually miss their loved ones so much that it actually breaks their heart, and they're so sorry they crossed over, they'd rather you die and come where they are than them
right.
have to go back to where you are, because it's
Yeah,
just, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you can't, what has come out cannot go back in. I
right.
heard that in a different kind of way from a member of your family up here. Oh, yes, death decks.
So has anybody heard about the death decks? The death decks, the EOL and the death deck. This is
So
end
this
of
is an
life.
American company, correct? They are two American women, or are they Canadian? They were on your Zoom.
One of them was, yeah, one of the
Yeah.
creators. Yeah, Lisa was on the Art of Departure. And they they started with the death deck. There's a lot of cards, and some of them are multiple choice. Like here's a good one. The ideal age to die is A, 90 and over, B, somewhere in my 80s, C, anytime it's my time, I'm ready. So the point of these cards is as a conversation starter.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also too, it helps you to look at things you wouldn't normally bring up with a person, or you wouldn't
I
even
know.
think about. Yeah. What is your answer to that question, by the way?
Um, I have been thinking for a while that I really like the number 88, and I thought it would be fun to die on the day before I turned 88. So I filled up 88 to, well, it could be right on 88, could be on my birthday. Um,
I thought it'd be fun to die
yeah, I
on.
thought it'd be fun to die on my, like, when I'm 88. And actually, I'm 66 now, so that would give me 22 years. And 22 years, so much has happened in the last 22 years.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't even have my postal route or my radio show 22 years ago, and so it's been a hugely packed time. So, yeah, I'd be up for 22 more years in my 80s. That'd be good. I'm not sure I really want to live much longer than that. It's pretty shocking, seeing my body age every day. Oh,
Yeah, yeah. I always, for the longest time, I thought I was going to die at 103. And
oh,
then about 5 years ago, I thought, oh, I think I might be 107. But now I look at people in their 80s and think, oh, I best be taking care of myself. I don't want that for 20 years of just trying to make it through the day, for goodness sake. So take care of your body. You don't know how long you're going to be.
yeah, I know. And it's like that. My friend in her 90s, she used to say, it was, I mean, other people have said this, but she would say, if I'd known I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. And I always thought that was a fun one. Okay, here's a good one here. Here's another 3-1. making a video of yourself to be played after you've died. Now, you just mentioned that, right?
I did, yes.
Okay. And so the three things are A, it's on my to-do list. B, something I would only consider doing if terminally ill or getting up in years. C, creepy, sad, and downright depressing.
Well, I'm not on C. I think I'm on A there, actually. It's something I think I'm going to do. What about you? Do you have a video that you're going to do?
Well,
Put
it's
on your bench. Sorry.
oh man, that's such a good idea.
Yeah, I don't even
Yeah.
think it's my idea.
Yeah. I've got every time I go, I make photos of myself on my bench and around the bench and everything, all the different seasons. But you know what? I don't think I've actually done that. Would brilliant. I will do that, Bobby. I will send it to you.
Groovy. Oh, thank you. Yes. And I will keep it in a safe place. And I actually think that you might want to plan to haunt your bench every now and again. So when people sit on your bench, you do this on the back of their neck or something like that. Or
Drop leaves off the silver maples.
yes, yes, or goose them as they sit down. They're like, what the? This bench
Oh yeah,
is
put a
not
whoopee
made."
cushion in.
I think that would be a great idea, Lynn. Just just a little
Well,
something you might want to keep in mind as you go.
well, I could mention that I have a dedicated bench journal that I take with me there, and I only
Oh,
write journal there. So it's an open journal. Anybody can read that journal because that's going to be sort of with the bench.
oh, that's awesome. So people can actually sit on the bench and read this journal about death and the thoughts about death. Or
Well, whatever was going on when I was visiting it over the years, right?
that's super cool.
But I actually, now I'm saying that I could really give some thought about that piece because I haven't arranged for a little, shelter for the journal to be there. Maybe I should get a little, a little waterproof satchel at the end of the bench. I have to keep checking with the custodian to see what I'm allowed to do.
Yeah, what you can do. I love, you know what, when you talk about that too, that journal, and I've never read Tuesdays with Maury. I just know it's a book that people like, but that's what it reminds me of. Like you
And I was
could
born on
actually,
Tuesday. I was born
oh
on a Tuesday.
my God, Tuesdays with Lynn. Tuesdays with the Thompson woman. That's actually what I just heard.
Now, ever the radio host, we are at coming up to an hour. So
We
as
are,
as
yes.
you being the host, I want to be sure that you are feeling satisfied with what we have done here.
Are you feeling satisfied with what we have done here?
We've covered a lot.
We have actually. I think we need to
Really,
come back another time. I think that you have
I've
so
really
much more.
enjoyed it. I miss seeing who's here though. I would love to see more questions or comments or things we can springboard on. And I don't know how much longer we
Yeah.
can go today, but
Well,
come
I
back.
have one from Jerry right here. She will be here past 100 as well. Then I may haunt those who do not treasure my stuff.
A
Right now, they go
compliment.
so things will be hopping. Well done, Jerry. Yes. You teach them a lesson for making fun of your metaphysical stuff. Oh, you don't think that has a property? Huh. Well done. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I plan on doing a lot of haunting myself.
Now
Yes.
77. Okay.
77. So you got just a little bit of time. 77. Past 100. Yeah, they better start paying more attention. And Jerry, have you allotted who gets what out of those kids that you have? Because I think that's a big, big, big thing for people, the allotment of stuff. Do you have it all allotted out, your stuff?
Mm. Well, we're in a bit of a situation because I don't trust the banks now. So
Yeah.
I've sort of got a stash and I've got an executor who I trust, and maybe some family members who might not have the same trust in him. So part of what I've put on my summary sheet is the decisions of the executor will be final.
The executor is God.
Oh, no, my executive friend. But you know what? What I am actually starting to do, this is a new idea. Really excited about this. At the bank, you can get these heavy duty coin boxes like that, like $1,000 of rolls of loonies or something, like they're heavy duty boxes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to start a box. I think they might not be big enough. So I may need to get into some bigger boxes, but I'm going to start a box for everybody in my beneficiary list. And I'm going to start putting things into those boxes, some money, various valuable things, and a letter. And so that I can appear as a kind person to them, even if they piss me off now, I can appear as a kind person. I can imagine what I would want to say to them from spirit.
Yes, you get the last word, and
Yeah,
it's
I get the
kind of
last
a
word.
and bless you.
And bless you. And then also I've got like a pile of prints, right, of photos, like in the old school, and they're just taking up room here. And I've organized them fairly well, but I want to now start to really get, like you're saying, like pretending we're going on a trip, and let's we don't need to get packed up and live in packed upness, but
Yeah.
I do want to just deal with this. Like I am the aunt, I am the elder now, and it's time for me to do this and prepare this, because I know that that would mean a lot to them, and that'll mean, if that was me, it would mean a lot to me that I was doing that. So
I can tell you one more thing I think that people want you to do.
okay.
Write something having to do with the family history.
Oh yeah, I know. I got all
Yes.
this family tree stuff. I've visited a lot of the cemeteries. I've found a lot of these people. I even corrected a typo on a headstone from the 1800s.
Wow. What was the typo?
It was just two letters that were switched. It was a very strange name in our family history on my mother's side, coming over
Mhm.
from Scotland, and it was on, like it was like it was like from a chess set, like a knight. It was like a big honking pinnacle of a headstone, and there was names, like I had the death cards from my aunt. I had the death cards for these people who had died, the death announcement cards. And I
Yeah.
went and I found them all on this one big honking headstone. And so there were names on all four sides, and I went there two times, and the second time I went there, the one side that was mostly in shade, it was hard to read. And I looked at it and I thought, you know what? I should make a scratching of this. So I got some paper out of the car and a pencil, and I scratched all out. And I realized that the same name that was properly spelled on the other side was two of the letters were switched, and it
Interesting.
was not right, right? So I contacted the cemetery. This is not near me, it's another part of Ontario. And I contacted the cemetery and got a hold of the current engraver. And for a couple $100, he was actually, because of the way it was, he was able to fix it.
Wow. That's amazing, actually. Amazing that it was even fixed. I'll bet you that person actually led you to that. Like, my
Yeah, and
name's wrong.
and I bet they're really happy, and probably figure that I shouldn't have been charged, but at least
Yeah.
I was able to organize it and set that mind at ease. So why did I even mention that, other than just yeah, I don't know why I
Family
mentioned that.
history.
Oh yeah, the history. Yeah, I've been to a lot of the cemeteries. I found a lot of the headstones, and I've got the notes from my mom's side of the family, my dad's side of the family, and it was a really big deal a couple years ago, and I've just gotten a little distracted and away from it, but it's all over there in the file drawer. I've got the stuff, and it's part of what I'm getting back to. I'd love to get back to.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think you're gonna have to. I think if you don't, you might get like funny feelings in here or something. That's what I'm hearing. Like, if you
Oh
don't,
no.
we're gonna pinch you, something like that. And
Well, okay. So that means that I'm going to get some encouragement and support, right?
yes, much encouragement and much support. Yes,
Deal.
absolutely. Yeah,
Deal.
yeah. Well, thank you very much, Lynn. And thank
Oh,
you everyone for coming. Okay, dokie. I'm just gonna put up one more thing from Jerry. Record voices to leave memories you have on their childhood. Sorry, that was yes. And Carrie had seen Days of the Week on a headstone. I don't know if I
oh,
mentioned it. I
yes,
noticed
right.
it.
That did come up. Okay, well, that's amazing, right? Because the older ones, they have they don't even have the dates sometimes. They'll say they died in this year and they lived for 88 years and 3 months and 2 days and a couple hours. Like they're very meticulous on how
Really?
long they lived. Yeah, some of them are like that, the older ones. And like some are just the years, but some are, the month and the day and the year. And but that's amazing that you actually saw one that had the day of the week, because I have never seen it other than mine.
Yeah. Now I want to go
One
walk through a cemetery.
Well, yeah, just it's something to look for. The other thing to look for when you walk through a cemetery, well, besides the names of people who thought they were indispensable, like we do,
Yeah.
is is to look for the day that you're on, like the day that you're walking through. Like, look for that date as a birth date or a death date, because then you can acknowledge somebody for their birth or
Oh,
death.
yes, you can say happy birthday to them or happy death day. Oh, what a great idea. I never even thought of that.
So magical. It makes it a very magical walk, because
It does,
you're
yeah. Yes. Okay, yeah. Yeah, actually, I walked through the cemetery in Gabriola not too long ago. It's slowly slipping into the ocean. So it
Oops.
was kind of interesting to walk through there. And you were walking right on, folks. Like, it was like really tight. So I'm going to go look through another cemetery and look for those sorts of things. Thank you. So will
Cool.
you come back and visit us again, Lynn?
Oh, I would dearly love to. This was so
Oh,
much
good.
fun, Bobby. Yeah, I could get used to being a guest. It's
Really? I think you're a
fun.
wonderful guest.
Thank you. You're a wonderful host. Well done.
We never ran out of things to talk about, you and me. Never.
No.
Those were a couple chatty Cathys. That's what it is.
And many thanks to the audience, people visiting who I wasn't able to really see, but I appreciate that some comments came through. That was very cool.
Yes, and I'll find out why you weren't able to see it, and then next time people can actually ask you direct questions for the next time.
Sure.
Yes,
And you'll give them that my one and only website. You'll that in your follow-up or whatever, I guess
yes,
you will.
yes, I will put all Lynn's links on the follow-up. Absolutely. Yeah, so
Thank
that
you.
everyone can look at the podcast and look at all of Lynn's great work.
Yay.
Yay. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Bobby.
Okie dokie. We end with a namaste here.
Oh.
So bring your hands to heart center. And namaste, everyone.
Namaste.
Thank you very much.